Welcome to the deep dive. You know, we spend so much of our lives driving for goals, for achievements, building this identity that we think the world wants to see. But what if real lasting success? I mean, authenticity isn't about building more, but maybe unbuilding.
That is the ultimate paradox, isn't it?
Yeah.
We all want the reward, but we don't always want the struggle.
Yeah.
We want the destination, but not the really uncomfortable work of shedding all that armor we've put on.
Right. And that's what we're diving into today. We've got sources from, well, everywhere: management philosophy, ancient wisdom, modern psychology, all trying to figure out this path to transformation.
There's a real tension. Our mission today is to unpack it. Why self-control is so critical for getting you pointed in the right direction.
But why surrender, patience and time is what actually gets you there to being authentically whole.
Exactly. And if you're listening and thinking that sounds like a huge project, well, our sources give us this really potent Spanish saying to hang on to. Lo que más trabajo cuesta, más dulce se muestra.
What costs the most effort ultimately tastes the sweetest.
That's the one. So let's start with that effort, with control. Because that's where any kind of transformation has to begin, right? We want change, so we look for a way to steer the ship.
And in the business world, that's Peter Drucker, Management by Objectives, MBO. But he was saying the biggest advantage of MBO was never really the org chart itself.
Not at all. It wasn't about the company flowchart. For Drucker, it was always deeply personal. He said MBO's greatest advantage is that it makes self-control possible.
Self-control.
Yeah. And once that kicks in, you get this stronger internal motivation. You get a real desire to do your best work, and your goals automatically get higher. It's about self-direction.
Okay, but there's a really important line he draws, isn't there, between control and domination.
That's everything. Drucker was so clear on this. Objectives are for self-direction, but they must never become a tool for one person to dominate another. The second that happens, the whole purpose is lost.
It makes you wonder then, because MBO as a framework is everywhere. It's been around for decades. But the sources ask this great question: why hasn't self-control become just as widespread?
I think we adopt the system without adopting the philosophy behind it.
We take the metric, but not the mindset.
Exactly. And I think that failure comes from us just fundamentally misdefining what a goal is for. We see it as the finish line.
But it's not.
Not always. Bruce Lee said a goal isn't always meant to be reached. He said it often serves simply as something to aim at.
The aiming is the important part.
Aiming is the work. And Gandhi just cements this idea. He says satisfaction lies in the effort, not in the attainment.
Because full effort is full victory.
You got it. If you're putting in that full self-directed effort, you've already won. The external result almost doesn't matter.
So that completely shifts the focus from the outside world to our own internal engine. And if we're aiming inward, then the goal has to be self-perfection. What drives that?
Well, you see, thinkers like Tolstoy and Kant coming to the same conclusion. They both say self-perfection should be your primary motivation. The mission is simple. Just make yourself better.
But Tolstoy also says that if you're really honest with yourself, you'll never be truly satisfied with yourself. I mean, perpetual dissatisfaction. That sounds like a recipe for constant anxiety. How is that a good thing?
Yeah, it sounds rough, but the sources are clear that it's not about self-loathing. It's more like a necessary condition of an intellectual life. That dissatisfaction is the engine.
Okay.
It's that gap between who you are and who you could be that pushes you to work. It's about progress, not punishment.
So if that's the engine, how do we keep the fuel clean?
According to ancient Chinese wisdom, the first rule is this: you focus only on self-perfection without any thought to being praised by others.
Wow. That takes incredible discipline. We all love applause.
We do. But the moment you start looking for that outside validation, you've stopped working on your authentic self. You're working on the persona now.
And that's how you actually move forward.
It is. The Buddhist teachings have this beautiful image of a person who moves from doing bad deeds to good ones. It says they enlighten the world like the moon coming out from behind the clouds.
Yeah.
It's just the first step toward divinity, you know? It's a journey.
And how do you know if you're really on that path versus just kind of resting on your past accomplishments?
It's the direction you're looking. The sources say those who are actively pursuing perfection, they only look forward. They're always seeing the next step, the next area to improve.
Well, the people who've stopped moving.
They're always looking back at their achievements. Self-perfection is an active state of becoming. It's not a title you earned in the past.
Okay, so that gives us the engine dissatisfaction.
Yeah.
And the mechanism, self-control. But now we get to the biggest obstacle, which is this thing we've built, this self that we present to the world.
Right. And this is where we shift from management to psychology. And Stephen Pressfield gives us this brilliant analogy. He says, your authentic force, the self, the muse, whatever you call it, is like a powerful kite pulling a surfer. It's already awake. It knows exactly where it's going.
Then the problem is,
The problem is, instead of just getting on the board and letting the kite pull us, most of us build a huge, heavy ship, an armored ship.
armored against the wind.
Exactly. And that ship is the persona. It's built out of social expectations, fear, the need to be liked. We're just too heavily armored to be moved by our own inner force.
But shedding that armor is a massive risk. That persona is safe, it's predictable, and for centuries, these roles, like strict gender roles, for example, have been policed social fictions. They demand conformity.
Niceness, agreeability, suppressing ambition,
Hmm.
anything that might make someone else uncomfortable.
And yet history is made by the people who refused that script, who chose wholeness instead.
Absolutely. Look at someone like Marlene Dietrich or Josephine Baker. They took what was considered masculine energy back then, power, assertiveness, and they infused their whole persona with it. That's how they found their freedom.
Or Coco Chanel. She wasn't just designing clothes, she was designing freedom by literally unconstraining the female body. She just refused to play along.
Even someone we think of as the picture of grace, like Jacqueline Kennedy.
Mm.
Our sources point out she had this enormous power precisely because she didn't hide what some people call a malicious streak, her sharpness, her ambition,
Her wholeness.
her wholeness. Her shadow was part of her power, not something to be hidden away for the sake of agreeability.
It reminds me of what G.K. Chesterton said, that we need good people to restrain bad laws. And in this case, the bad laws are those limiting social rules we put on ourselves.
Yes, and if we don't integrate those hidden parts, the ambition, the anger, the shadow, well, the educator Haim Janat warned that when we're fragmented like that, performing oneself while hiding another, we're literally not at ease. We get dis-ease.
And that internal split, that turbulence,
Yeah,
it has to leak out somewhere.
it does. We become, as Janat said, tools of torture for ourselves and for others.
So a solution.
Robert Greene says showing the shadow is a form of exorcism. You bring those messy, difficult parts of yourself into the light, and they stop controlling you from the back seat. Authenticity isn't about being perfect. It's about being congruent.
Okay, that sounds like a really active, almost aggressive project. We're tearing down the ship, but now, here's the paradox we talked about at the beginning. We just built up this whole engine of self-control, and now we're being told to stop.
Exactly. This is where modern discipline crashes right into ancient wisdom. And the advice seems to completely contradict everything we just said. Tolstoy.
Hmm.
He identified the two most powerful warriors in any transformation,
And they are.
patience and time.
Wait, hold on. We just spent half this deep dive talking about striving, about maximum effort, and now the real transformation comes from sitting back and waiting. That feels so counterintuitive.
It does. It runs against our whole instinct to just, conquer every problem with willpower. But think about it. You can't force snow to melt faster. You can't yell at a seed to make it sprout.
You can only set the conditions.
You can only set the conditions. Self-control gives you the direction, effort gives you the nutrients. But the unfolding of your authentic self requires surrender. You have to surrender to a natural process that takes time.
That deeper wisdom. It must be why we so often miss the point of things like the Serenity Prayer. We only ever quote the first few lines.
We do. We all know, God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and wisdom to know the difference. But it keeps going.
And the rest of it is the key.
The rest of it is the wisdom of surrender. It talks about accepting hardship as the pathway to peace, taking the world and ourselves as it is, not as we wish it was, and trusting that surrender makes things right.
So surrender isn't giving up. It's alignment.
It's alignment with a much longer cycle of growth. And if you're struggling with that slow pace, Confucius has this really practical advice. When the goal can't be reached, don't adjust the goal, adjust the action steps.
So if the goal is an authentic self, maybe the action step isn't to build a better persona.
Maybe the action step is to start unbuilding the false one that's hiding who you already are.
It's the ultimate act of subtraction.
Rumi captures it so beautifully. He says, be like melting snow. Wash yourself of yourself.
Wash yourself of yourself. Wow, that sounds profoundly difficult. We cling to who we think we are, even the false parts. How do you even start that melting process?
By asking what doesn't belong. It's like Michelangelo seeing the statue inside the marble. The genius is just in removing everything that isn't David. You're washing away the performances, the masks, the roles you were told to play, and it takes patience and time because you built them layer by layer.
And for any of that to even begin, for that radical self-subtraction to work, your foundation has to be solid.
And that foundation is just belief. Will Smith said it perfectly. The very first step before anyone else believes in you is that you have to believe it. You have to believe in that complex, contradictory, shadow-integrated, authentic self that's already there, pulling you like that kite.
So if we take this whole journey, self-control, the dissatisfaction, the patient surrender, how do we actually apply that when the world is just constantly screaming for our attention?
We use the compass that Eisenhower gave us. He said the urgent rarely matters, and the important is rarely urgent.
That's such a powerful way to see it. The urgent is the armored ship. Managing your image, seeking approval, conforming, the important. That's the internal alignment. That's dissolving the false self.
And if you're ever struggling to prioritize that internal work, just remember Christopher Walken's brutal truth. People forget the dead quickly, so stop living to impress them.
The only reason to do the work is because it matters to you.
To your own alignment. And if you need a moral metric for that work, the Dalai Lama offers a simple one. Help others. Or at the very least, do no harm. And you can apply that everywhere. Ask yourself, are you good at it? Do you love it? Does anyone need you to do it? Make sure that where your authentic gifts meet the world's needs, you're a force for good.
So in the end, this whole journey, it comes back to subtraction.
It does. The goal isn't to become some new, improved, socially acceptable version of you. It's to stop being someone you never really were in the first place.
So what structure, what persona, what layer of yourself are you ready to start dissolving, to let that authentic force finally pull you forward? Think about that. As you melt the snow,